welcome back to From the Ground Up, Building a New Business. Today, we're talking about naming the business. Now, as Shakespeare once said, what's in the name? A rose by any other name would smell just as sweet. I mean, he says that, but realistically, naming is important. And over the last 5 years, I've mentored over 500 people, and the name is often a sticking point for most. Most people have an idea, they have a problem they want to solve, but they struggle with naming. And the name is what holds them back from progressing to that next step. I don't want you to be like those people, and I'm certainly not one of those people. So I started exploring the names, the naming. What name could I come up with for the product? What name could I create that would be new and innovative and not used before? What name could I use that would be a little bit unique? I went through all of that. I remember being in Thailand and going through that naming process and really thinking about what name I wanted for the brand. And I went through so many iterations. I had this notepad, I have it here somewhere actually, with all the different names in there. And I was thinking about names that were illustrative of what I wanted to provide. So I went through all these different options. I said, okay, I want it to be, it's a luxury product, right? And it's natural, but it's made in the lab. So I was like, okay, we're going to call it Lux Lab. Like that was my thought process. Like Lux Lab. Okay, cool. Well, when you decide what name you want to go for, there's a few key checks that you need to do, right? So the first one, of course, is the domain name available? i.e., can you get the website? That's the first check, that's important. Then, can you get the social media handles? And then, can you get the trademark? Like those three things are really important. And they're not necessarily in that order of importance, but fundamentally, you kind of need all three to get that like ding, ding, ding. Like you've done it, you've made the mark. So I said, okay, Lux Lab. I went on to my like domain name website that I use. I looked for Lux Lab, it was taken. I looked at Lux Laboratory, taken. Luxury Laboratory, taken. Lux Laboratory. Like I went through all the various iterations that were possible. I even thought, okay, Nat Lux Lab, natural luxury laboratory. Look, that was taken too. And I know it's frustrating because it was frustrating for me because I started thinking, well, what do I want to call it? What would I think would resonate most with the type of brand that I want to create and the type of feeling I want my customer to have? And so as I was going through this journey, I started thinking about other ways to illustrate my brand. But before I get into that, let me give you kind of a bit of the background on naming. So if we think about it, domain name checks. It's really important that you check that you can get your website for your brand name. Now, the reason why this is important is because, of course, you want to secure that name so that if your brand becomes the next, I don't know, L'Oreal, Apple, Nando's, whatever, you want to make sure that you have the domain name so that no one else can trade with your name. That's why you want to secure the domain name. And so often what people do, and look, I've done it in the past too. I wasn't born like this as an entrepreneur. I've had my journey too, right? Where you then add hyphens and you add S's and make things plural and so on in order to achieve the name that you wanted rather than just making a step to change the name. And that's not a great idea. So if we stick with the Nando's example, right? And you just added, I don't know, Nando's is not the greatest example. Let's use Apple. If we use Apple as an example, the reason why Apple were able to trademark their brand is because they were trademarking it for technology, not for the fruit. So you're not allowed to trademark something that is used in common language, in common vernacular and communication, because that would be unfair because you would essentially be trying to prevent people from using normal words. So instead, often what happens is people make up words or they use a word, but they use it in a different way. Apple, Uber, and so on. So Apple, of course, uses that brand name, but for technology. Now, that is one thing you could do. You could find a name that you like and then change the meaning, change the perception, change the way people feel about that name. Alternatively, you might want to think of a name that's never been used before. You might want to make a name up. And so by doing that, you could go for a name like a Twitter, like an Instagram, like a Snapchat, right? A name that meant nothing to any of us until they came out and came onto the market and redefined what that name meant. So you might want to make a name up. Okay, so that's an option. Then you might want to think of a name that's just really out there. Okay, there is a brand that I find really interesting. It's called Slutty Vegan. Okay, I don't think they have it in the UK, but anyway, they have this brand identity which really sets them apart. It's like a really unusual name, which probably means they were able to get the domain name, to get the trademark and so on, and they were able to get everything they needed to protect that brand. So you might want to create something that is unusual that you feel is going to resonate with your brand and your brand only. So that's a few different ways to think about how you make your brand stand out. Now, I have chosen my name, finally. I'm going through the trademark registration process. I'm pretty confident it's going to go through. And of course, it comes under my brand umbrella, but I still wanted to make sure this collection stands out, right? Because I'm building this brand from the ground up. I want to go through that journey of making sure I have everything in place to protect my brand and to help my brand to have the best possible future. So that's really important to me. Now, when you think about naming, the other option, of course, is to use your own name. So previously, with my first brand, Bianca Miller London, I, of course, named it after myself, my maiden name prior to being married, Bianca Miller. But the risk there is, of course, if you then sell that brand, you would also need to sell that name. A bit like Jo Malone had to sell her name when she sold Jo Malone candle brand. And so you have to be comfortable or confident with someone else buying your name, your identity, and them sailing that ship, them using your name going forward. And not everyone is comfortable with that. So always think about those couple of things when you're going along that trademark journey. Now, I'd encourage you to get that trademark expert advice, but also to do your own checks in terms of the right domains and the social media handles. So let me leave you with a quick checklist. These are some of the things that I had to think about while I was going through the process of naming my business. So here we are. Here are some of the questions I need you to ask yourself. So the first is, what do you want the name to represent? What name do you like? What does the name mean to you? What about the name makes it stand out? Can you purchase the domains? Is it available on the trademark register in your country, but also in other territories? So if you're thinking of selling into other territories, or of course, you are manufacturing somewhere else, you want to make sure you're protected there too. Can you secure the social handles? Do you need a trademark lawyer or consultant to support you? So if you're on this journey with me, you want to be thinking about how you can protect your brand, how you can stop other people from trading on your goodwill or selling inferior products in your name. So make sure you think about a great name that you are happy with, but that the naming process does not stop you from moving forward. As I said before, it's about trying to get to market as quickly as possible with the highest quality product, of course, but speed to market is important. We want to test the market as quickly as we can. Now, I hope you're really enjoying this series of how to build a brand from the ground up. I'm really enjoying this journey myself. You know, I've built lots of different businesses, but to go on this journey to building a brand new brand with you and with my winning team of Fiverr experts, it really is exciting. I really hope you're enjoying it. If you are, make sure you subscribe, you like, you comment, and you join me on this journey. And of course, go to the Fiverr website and start building your winning team as well. Join me next week for more. And next week, we'll be focusing on how to find a manufacturer for your brand. I'll see you then.